Well, fellow Legionnaires, I'm delighted to be here this morning. I'm obviously invited, as was announced, because I am a candidate for the United States Senate. I have been admonished to not electioneer too much, but you know, I'm kind of unrestrained sometimes, but I'll do my best. How about that? I'm delighted to be here as a fellow Legionnaire. I'm a member of Post 84 in Richmond. I am a United States, thank you. I am a United States Army veteran, having served in Germany during the Cold War. I was put in 1971, got out in 1974, and since that time I'm proud to say that I also served as Chairman of the Board of Visitors of the United States Air Force Academy, Chairman of the National Commission on Terrorism and Homeland Security. So I spent a great deal of my life, as you have, serving my country. And I know that my time is short. I have much that I'd like to tell you, so bear with me for just a few minutes. I salute you and salute all of us who are Army veterans. We're the ones that over our lifetimes have kept the United States strong. That day is still with us, and we could even become more intense as time goes on. The roles of the citizenry have always been to rally to the United States. I think about it when we think about people who were flat out drafted in World War II, in Korea, and others who went directly into the military under the draft. We have thought about people who have joined in the volunteer force and have done their duty as they are doing today. The people who are prepared to go into the United States military and put their lives on the line for this country are the people who preserve the nation. And we have to think about whether the nation is worth it. And I can tell you that it is. The United States of America is a country. It has its borders, it has its laws, it has its values. And it's different from other countries across the world. People don't want us to necessarily be the way we are. There will be, over generations and generations, people who will impinge themselves on the interests of the citizens of the United States, and there will always be a call for people to go into the military and stand the post. And I'm proud of you and all of us who have stood the post. Because we have to preserve our freedoms and our liberties, the freedoms that we've seen under all the constitutional amendments, including, by the way, the Second Amendment. I'm a member of the NRA National Board, and I happen to believe in the plain language of the Second Amendment. And we just saw a good court case that just happened in D.C. to preserve, for example, our rights under the Second Amendment. But 4 justices ruled we didn't have that right. So constant vigilance, not just overseas, but domestically also. And you know what? Running for public office and supporting people in public office is part of that internal democratic combat that we do to preserve our way of life and our rights each and every day. And I make no apologies for running for public office here in the United States of America. Now, let's talk about the traditions that we've had. I think all the time about the traditions of the American military forces and its very inception. And my favorite story, of course, is going back to the very beginning when there was no real country. And that back in the American Revolution, when Washington led the Continental Army, and they withdrew from the British Army, which is actually on our shores, actually controlling this area of the world. And they fled, defeated, and yet they never lost their hope, got back across the Delaware River, and they were shivering in winter quarters, and everything looked like it was collapsing. And Washington led those soldiers out of winter camp with no shoes, in the snow, into boats, full of ice floes in the river, and crossed that river and marched down to Trenton to attack the Hessians and the British. Why would they do that? It's amazing to even think now, today, that in Christmas of 1776, men were prepared to actually do that for the good of the nation. And that is the tradition that we have had. And the American Legion is the direct inheritor of that tradition. The direct inheritor, and we should be proud of that. As United States Senator, I intend to remember the soldier to the extent that necessities are needed on the battlefield in the Middle East or anywhere else in the world. Whether it's armored vehicles or whether it's body armor, I'm going to make sure as United States Senator that those men and women are taken care of overseas, standing for us. As United States Senator, I'm going to remember the veteran. I myself went to law school on the GI Bill. My mother and father were working people, and I can tell you we were awfully glad to have the GI Bill. It didn't pay everything, but I didn't expect everything. I expected to work in the summers. I expected to save my money even a little bit when I was in the service and spend money, but the GI Bill was essential, and I support major GI Bill revisions in order to bring more benefits to people who are coming out. We remember not just the veterans, but we remember the families. When I was the governor of Virginia, we reduced taxes on many of the military families of the state of Virginia in order that they could have more of their own money, because I myself had been in those PXs across the United States of America. And I understood that military families have a hard time making ends meet, and that's why we cut their taxes. I think I understand the threat. As chairman of the Gilmore Commission, the National Commission on Terrorism and Homeland Security, we wrote the Bible of Homeland Security for this country. And there may come a day when not only active duty people, but National Guard, reserves, and even veterans may be called on to preserve this nation here at home once again, depending upon what happens as time goes on. And I understand this threat. I have seen the Berlin Wall with my own eyes. It's not there now, but I've seen it myself. I've defended Germany and the Western world during a time of crisis. I understand what it is to go overseas on behalf of your country, and I understand the necessity of a strong national defense in a time of great danger. And look at the country today. Look at the world today. This is a dangerous moment. It is a different danger from the Soviet threat, but it is a real danger. It is a danger of radical terrorism and radical Islamists, not all Islamists, but just radical Islamists, who are out there threatening the Western world and will do so militarily, as we saw at the 9/11 attack. And I was the governor of Virginia during the 9/11 attack. And I understand what those threats mean. We have a cartel called OPEC that is trying to control the economic and energy interests of this country. In the United States of America, a cartel is illegal because it improperly manipulates markets and prices to the detriment of the citizenry. And yet, an international cartel controls the best interests of the United States. We see a danger from China, which is very serious. We hope that it will be an economic ally, but it will not necessarily be so. We see dangers even in Latin America. We see dangers in Iran, which each and every day has asserted themselves to control that portion of the Middle East and creating an inflammatory situation which could make things even worse and drawing the Western world because of our interests, both in energy and in liberty. And I say this, the time has come for a change. For 30 years, the policy of the United States has been to not create domestic energy. And I say there's time for a change, it's time for a declaration of energy independence, and I say we begin to drill for oil in the United States now and create more domestic oil production. Don't you believe people that tell you that it can't make any difference. That is not true. These resources, these markets internationally are very, very sensitive. And if the United States of America declares that we are going to drill in Anwar and we are going to drill offshore and we're going to bring that oil in, those markets will change today. Because the speculators will understand, and people overseas who control us will understand, that the United States has made a firm decision to have an energy policy that is for Americans. And that's what we should do.